The porch door slammed open, and a piercing, high-pitched scream tore through the quiet suburban air. "You must be proud, Tracy. You've destroyed our family." My mother, Susan, said that hysterically. Next to her, the deputy sheriff held up a thick stack of papers, his voice void of any emotion. "This is a court order, ma'am. You are to vacate immediately. This is your final notice." From inside the house, my sister Katie stumbled out, sobbing uncontrollably. Her arms were weighed down with several oversized designer bags that looked completely out of place in her small frame. I was perhaps a demon. I murmured quietly to myself and laced my fingers on the steering wheel. I don't think I was ever that calm, not even when I stared at anatomy charts in med school. My mind was like a still sea after a storm had swept everything away. My mother noticed my car parked across the street. Her face was twisted with hatred as she pointed a trembling finger directly at me. Even hearing those words, my heartbeat didn't quicken. There was no sympathy, no regret. Only the cold, surgical resolve of a doctor holding a scalpel, ready to end what needed to be ended. My father left a silent promise that my daughter Nicole and I should be able to live safely. Who had trampled that promise underfoot? Why had it come to this? Just a few hours ago, I was only thinking of the warm pancakes I would share with my daughter. The clock read 8 a.m. After a grueling 36-hour shift in the trauma unit, I was finally done. Leaving behind the chaos of the ER, I walked toward the parking lot, blinded by the morning sun. My thoughts were hazy, clouded by caffeine and exhaustion. First, I headed to the home of Nicole's best friend, where she had spent the night. She had been counting down the days, excited for the weekend sleepover. When I rang the doorbell, Nicole appeared in her pajamas, rubbing her sleepy eyes as she ran toward me. "Mom, you're home." "I'm back, Nicole. Did you have fun?" "Yes, so much fun." Her bright smile thawed my stiffened heart just a little. I buckled Nicole into the passenger seat, and we drove along familiar streets. "You must be hungry. Once we get home, I'll make you warm pancakes." "Yay, can I put lots of syrup on them?" "Of course." With such ordinary yet precious conversation, we headed home. Parking in front of the porch, Nicole and I walked toward the front door. I shed my heavy scrubs and enjoyed a warm breakfast with my daughter. That was all that mattered. But when I was at work one day, that ordinary morning came to a sudden end at that very door. I received an unbelievable phone call from Nicole. Um, Mom, the door. It won't open." "Won't open? What do you mean?" "I don't know. The key won't go in. Mom, maybe, maybe someone changed the locks." The impossible possibility in her voice froze me. Beyond Nicole's fear, I thought I saw Susan and Katie's mocking smiles. I told my supervisor, "There's a family emergency," and bolted from the hospital without waiting for approval. Outside, the rain poured like someone had turned a bucket upside down. The wipers flailed wildly, and the rain distorted everything I saw, except the single path leading to my house. The engine roared. The rain pounded on the asphalt, and beneath my ribs, my heart thumped like an alarm bell. Everything else seemed to vanish from the world. Turning the corner onto my private driveway, my heart froze. Under the dim orange light of the porch, I saw a small figure. Nicole. She was crouched down, hugging her backpack like a shield. I slammed the car into park and ran toward her, ignoring the rain and leaving my umbrella behind. "Nicole." She slowly lifted her pale, cold face to me, her lips purple from the chill. I rushed to her, holding her tight, so tight until she felt warmth again. "Mom, I'm sorry. You haven't done anything wrong. Nothing at all." I gently stroked my trembling daughter's hair and slowly lifted my face. Then I fixed my gaze on the wooden door, the source of all this chaos. It was then that the front door began to open, as if a stage curtain were being drawn. Standing there was my mother, Susan. She held a wineglass in her hand. Her expression gave away not a hint of concern for her soaked daughter and granddaughter. Only a cold, sharp irritation, the kind reserved for unwelcome guests. "You changed the locks," I said, my voice flat in a way that even surprised me. Susan let out an exaggerated sigh. "Yes, I changed them. I thought it was finally time for some peace and quiet." Behind her, my sister Katie peeked out, eyes sparkling with curiosity and barely concealed superiority. "What do you think you're doing?" "Doing exactly what I said, Tracy." Susan sipped her wine and then, as if declining a restaurant reservation, added casually, Katie and I decided that you two won't be living here anymore. For a moment, the world went silent. Susan's words stabbed at my eardrums like a cold knife, paralyzing my thoughts. I could hear Nicole holding her breath beside me. Katie showed the tiniest flicker of guilt, but her eyes were laughing. Normally, maybe I would have screamed. Maybe I would have cried and pounded on the door. But what flared inside me was not a raging fire. It was colder, harder, a block of ice at absolute zero. I studied Susan and Katie's faces quietly, weighing them like a doctor examining a patient's chart. Then I slowly said, I see. Those few words were nothing like the reaction they expected. Susan's brow furrowed in suspicion. What did you say? You heard me. I said no more, placing my hand over Nicole's small one. Then, turning my back on them, I began walking slowly through the rain step by step, feeling the weight of their bewildered gaze on my back. Back at the car, I helped Nicole into the passenger seat, cranked the heat to maximum, and settled in. Mom, what are we going to do now? I met my daughter's worried eyes with the calmest smile I could manage. It's okay, Nicole. Everything will be fine. First, let's find somewhere warm so you can take a bath. I started the car, watching our home disappear into the rain-soaked darkness in the rearview mirror. That house was no longer a safe place. We headed for the airport. And then we prepared to leave for Hawaii. I arranged time off at the hospital with the help of my colleagues, booked first-class tickets, and we left immediately. There were no special plans, just a long overdue vacation for me and my daughter. Even so, my mind remained surprisingly clear, calculating the next steps. This was not revenge. It was a logical process to reclaim what had been taken. Nicole finally fell into a peaceful sleep in the hotel bed, the stress and exhaustion of the day pulling her into deep slumber. Watching her innocent face, I made a silent vow. Nothing else would be taken from her. I opened my briefcase and carefully pulled out a thick manila envelope. It was hidden among medical papers, but always safely preserved. Inside were the documents for my father's living trust. He had arranged it secretly with a lawyer months before his death. The weight of the papers pressed into my palm, heavy with significance. These were not just documents. They were my father's shield and final act of love for Nicole and me. I found the business card of our lawyer, Robert, and tapped his number into my phone. The clock read past 3 a.m. By normal standards, this was not a time to make a phone call. But I had painfully learned today that normal standards did not apply to certain people. I had to rely on extraordinary people in extraordinary times. After a few rings, a calm, measured male voice came through, alert and awake. Tracy? Yes, Robert, I'm sorry to call at this hour. No, it's all right. Honestly, I suspected that a call from you at this time wouldn't be good news. There was a resonance in his voice that suggested he understood everything already. I drew in a deep breath and spoke quietly. It seems the time has come. I could hear Robert exhale sharply on the other end. I see. So it has come to this. Tell me what happened. My mother and sister forced me out of the house. They changed the locks, claiming ownership. Nicole was there too. Outside, in the rain. What? No, I shouldn't get too emotional now. Are you and Nicole safe? Are you in a secure place? Yes, we're in Hawaii. And the documents, they're with me now. At those words, Robert replied with quiet strength. Good. With that, you will never lose. You are the rightful custodian of the house. They are nothing more than trespassers. Robert's resolute words were like a single beam of light piercing through the darkness. Trespassers. I repeated the word, letting it sink in. Yes. Under the law, they have no rights. They are mere intruders. His words cleared my mind even further. This was not an emotional family squabble. It was a legitimate response to a violation of legal rights. I understand. My wishes are simple. To protect what my father left behind and to safeguard Nicole's future. We will proceed with the necessary steps calmly and methodically. You are strong, Tracy. Yes, we should act according to the law. Methodically, deliberately, and with certainty, Robert said, his voice full of unwavering trust. Please, recover our home for us in the fastest, most certain way possible. I understand. Here's the plan. First thing tomorrow morning, I will prepare a formal eviction notice in my name and send it by certified mail. They will have 48 hours to comply. If they do not vacate within that period, we will immediately petition the court for a forced eviction. Your dedication to your father, combined with the fact that they left Nicole in the rain, will ensure the judge grants the order without hesitation. Finally, the sheriff's office will carry out the order. The weight of the word sheriff hit me. It was real, imminent. Are you all right with this? Robert asked, double-checking. I gently brushed Nicole's sleeping cheek. To protect this warmth, I could become a demon if necessary. Yes, this is the path they chose themselves. I exhaled quietly after I ended the call. The legal path was set. All that remained was its execution. Looking at Nicole's peaceful face in her sleep, memories from long ago resurfaced. Why had Susan gone to such lengths to expel me? Perhaps our natures were fundamentally different. My mother thrived on emotional waves, seeing empathy as the core of communication. In that world, Katie had a natural talent. I, from a young age, had internalized emotions, analyzing life logically. In my mother's eyes, my calmness was perceived as coldness, incomprehensible and unacceptable. So I stopped playing the daughter she wanted me to be. Instead, I walked straight along the path I believed to be right. It was undoubtedly a lonely road, but it shaped the unshakable person I am today. And one person had always seen my true nature: my father. One night, while I was reading a thick medical text in the study, he quietly said, "Tracy, you look at the heart of things. That quiet strength isn't something everyone has. You are fine just as you are." Those words became my compass. What I am about to do is not emotional revenge. It is a necessary battle to protect the dignity of the person my father believed me to be, and the future he entrusted to me and Nicole. I quietly clenched my fists. A week had passed since I was driven from my home. During that time, I had not simply waited idly. I stayed in daily contact with Robert, cared for Nicole's emotional well-being, and quietly honed my mind for the day to come. Meanwhile, Katie's social media broadcasted their foolishness to the world. Here's to a new chapter. The caption accompanied a photo of Susan and Katie raising wine glasses in the study that had once belonged to my father, smiling broadly as if celebrating victory. In the background, the bookshelf filled with memories of my father had been removed, replaced by tasteless decorations that peeked into the frame. They were unknowingly broadcasting evidence of their own crime to the world. It was the evidence that would strangle them, yet they had no idea. They didn't have a clue that it had become the bell tolling the end of their brief paradise. That day, the postal worker handed over what appeared to be an ordinary envelope to them, but the sender's field bore the unfamiliar stamp of a law firm, along with a green certified mail sticker affixed to it. "What's this?" Katie accepted it hesitantly and handed it to Susan in the living room. "Probably some kind of sales pitch again," Susan said, presumably opening the envelope elegantly with a wine glass in hand. But as her eyes scanned a few lines, her fingers froze. I could imagine the color draining from her face. Notice of eviction. Trespassing. The rightful authority over the property resides with the trustee, Tracy Baker. Legal basis. Living trust created by the deceased. "Mom, what's wrong?" Noticing her mother's reaction, Katie snatched the document and peered at it herself. Her cheerful expression froze instantly. "You've got to be joking. Trespassing us? What does this mean?" The wine glass slipped from Susan's trembling hand, shattering loudly on the floor. The high-pitched crash sounded like a fanfare announcing the end of their fragile kingdom. Broken glass scattered across the floor, but neither Susan nor Katie had the composure to clean it up. "What does this mean? That girl sent us this. How dare she?" Susan broke the silence first. Her voice trembled with anger, yet beneath it there was undeniable unease. "It's your fault, Mom," Katie shrieked. "You said, 'No worries, Tracy can't do anything.'" "Remember? So what is this living trust nonsense?" "My fault. You were the one celebrating getting this big house." Just a week ago, they had sat on the same sofa, laughed, and shared dreams. Now they were like wild animals, clawing at each other, tossing the responsibility ball back and forth, desperate to avoid it themselves. "Anyway, call our lawyer. We need our lawyer right now," Susan yelled. Katie hurriedly grabbed her smartphone to call a small, family-run law firm. the same lawyer who had helped with my father's will once. From the speakerphone came a disinterested male voice. Yes, yes. So what does the document say? It says we're trespassing. Us. Tracy is behind this. You have to fix this. Susan ranted. Please calm down, ma'am. What legal basis does the document cite? Katie read the words aloud with a trembling voice. Living, trust, basis, trustee, Tracy. On the other end, I could hear the lawyer exhale deeply, the weight of it evident. A living trust. And the trustee is Tracy? That's what I'm saying. Can't you do something about it? Susan shouted, barely containing her frustration. I'm afraid, ma'am, that legally you have no standing in this matter. The two of them were left speechless by that merciless declaration. The lawyer's words must have sounded as if they came from a distant, unreachable world. The 48-hour eviction notice passed, yet the house door remained firmly closed. Susan probably insisted, "What's wrong with me living in my husband's house?" Katie deleted all social media posts, fearful and clinging to her mother's authority. Then came the fateful Thursday morning. We returned from Hawaii and parked across the street. Nicole sat beside me, witnessing the reality and our new beginning. At exactly 10 a.m., a single sheriff's patrol car quietly pulled up in front of the house. Two sturdy deputy sheriffs stepped out. Without unnecessary movements, they climbed the porch steps and knocked on the door with solemn precision. From this point on, the scene seemed to unfold in slow motion. The door burst open and Susan appeared, her face twisted in fury. What is the meaning of this? This is a court-issued eviction notice. You have 15 minutes to gather your personal belongings and vacate the premises. The sheriff's calm voice rang out, cutting through the quiet morning air. Don't be ridiculous. This is my house, Susan shrieked. Katie was sobbing as she yelled, This is a violation of our human rights. But in front of the enforcers of the law, their hysteria was nothing more than empty noise. Slowly, curtains began to open in the neighboring houses. An elderly couple on a morning walk paused, looking on curiously. From the second-floor window across the street, a young resident even raised a smartphone to record. The news would spread through the neighborhood in an instant. They weren't losing just the house. They were losing the facade of social credibility they had built over the years. 15 minutes later, both women were escorted out, crawling as if through shame. Katie dragged a bag stuffed with clothes, crying, while Susan clutched a single-framed photo like the last piece of her pride. Spotting me, Susan screamed through gritted teeth. You must be proud, Tracy. You've destroyed our family. I simply met her gaze quietly. It was you who destroyed it, I thought silently. I waited patiently until the sheriff's patrol car turned the corner and disappeared from view. The street returned to its usual calm, but the scars left on that house would not fade so easily. Mom, can we go in now? Nicole looked up at me, her eyes wary. I gently stroked her head and forced a reassuring smile. Yes, of course. Let's go home. With trembling hands, I inserted the new key from the sheriff into the lock. The dry click sounded as the heavy door swung open. Inside, the house was filled with the chaos they had left behind, and a faint, cheap perfume lingered in the air. Half-empty mugs, scattered shoes, magazines tossed across the sofa, like a robber had left in a hurry. I went to the living room and opened every window. Cold, fresh air filled the rooms, chasing out the stagnant atmosphere. Nicole, go see your room. You can rearrange it however you like, I said. Really? Yay! She bounded up the stairs, her joyful voice breathing life back into the house. Over the following weeks, our peaceful days settled in. On weekends, we painted my late father's study together, turning it into Nicole's study room. She chose a bright sky blue for the walls. Meanwhile, updates on Susan and Katie came through Robert as routine reports. After being evicted, the two had moved into the small apartment Katie had rented. But life there could not possibly work smoothly for Susan, the former queen bee who had pampered Katie. Money was the biggest problem. While living in the house, I had covered most expenses: property taxes, high utility bills, and maintenance. They had taken full advantage of that, and neither had the financial means to live independently. Susan's small pension combined with Katie's part-time income was nowhere near enough to sustain city life. Katie began posting on social media about enduring emotional abuse from my parents. Susan, meanwhile, called mutual friends, tearfully claiming she had been betrayed and used by her daughter. It was a quagmire. The sharp blades they once directed at me were now aimed at each other. With Tracy, their common enemy, gone, only resentment remained between them. Even hearing these reports, my heart remained strangely calm. No joy, no sympathy. It had simply happened as it was meant to. 3 months had passed since I regained the house. One afternoon, an unfamiliar number called my phone. Hello? Tracy, it's me, your Aunt Cindy. It had been years since I'd last spoken to my mother's sister. There was a mixture of awkwardness and urgency in her voice. I heard about your mother. It sounds really rough. She's barely able to eat, Aunt Cindy continued, her words steeped in sympathy. Even Katie says she can't take it anymore. They argue every day. It's tearing them apart. Tracy, no matter what happened, they're still your blood. Couldn't you, just this once, help them? Even as I listened, my heart did not waver. Thank you for calling, Aunt Cindy. But the situation my mother and Katie are in now is the result of their own choices. It isn't my place to intervene. My calm tone left her speechless. After a few awkward seconds, she ended the call. This is it, I thought. It's finally over. But that night, an email arrived. The sender was Katie. No subject line, just 2 short lines in the body. I don't know what to do anymore. How did it come to this? It wasn't an apology, nor an excuse, nor a plea for forgiveness. It was simply the weak SOS of a lost child. I didn't want my peace disturbed again. I didn't want Nicole to be dragged back into that ugliness. That was my truth. I closed my laptop and gazed out the study window at the moonlit garden. The garden my father had loved. When I closed my eyes, I could almost hear his voice. Fragments of the many things he'd told me over the years, as a doctor, as a man, as a father. Listen, Tracy. Forgiving someone isn't for their sake. It's so the future you won't be chained to the hatred of the past. Yes, that was what he always said. Forgiveness is not a pardon for others. It is a key to free oneself. I didn't want to welcome Susan or Katie back into my life, but I also didn't want to be ruled by the past any longer. With that resolve, I opened a new message and typed Robert's email address into the recipient line. I made a decision. The email from Brittany could be seen as a silent cry for help. Ignoring it, I realized, thanks to my father's teachings, would only mean allowing myself to remain bound by the hatred of the past. Through Robert, I arranged to meet them once, on the condition that they sign a legally binding document. When my mother and sister appeared in the hotel lounge, they were unrecognizable. Their once proud figures hollowed by reality. I broke the heavy silence first. I didn't come here to forgive you. That's no longer possible. My voice was calm but final. But I will stop hating you. For me, and for Nicole. The chain of resentment ends here, today. It was as if those words shattered the last dam inside my mother. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. Tracy, I was wrong. All of it. It was the first and only true apology I ever heard from her. I accepted it silently, then placed a single file on the table. In here are contact numbers for social services and counselors. This is the last and only help I can offer. No money, just a small map to keep them from total isolation. We exchanged no further words. We stood, turned, and never looked back. Half a year later, spring sunlight poured into our garden. Nicole and I, covered in dirt, were planting colorful flower seeds together. Mom, look, new sprouts. Her bright voice rang through the peaceful air. This house, my father's legacy, has been our promised home. Here we would live, not to nurture hatred, but to grow hope. As I looked up at the wide, clear blue sky, I made that silent vow. To my father, and to myself.